Who has their name outside on the marquee and just doesn't show up?
I don't know.
Terribly,
He's probably still playing a
rude,
gig
Kevin.
somewhere.
No, I'm just kidding.
So Bruce Conque joining us in studio this morning.
Yeah, you have to settle for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, oh, gosh, yes. No, Bruce, you always come with such a wealth of information and insight.
Yes.
And one of the things we wanted to talk about is
taxes and how
Yes.
we do that. And okay, so everybody would like to have more services in government or better services, but nobody wants to really pay more.
Expenses have to have a source of revenue to cover. And
Wait, there's not just a money tree?
It just doesn't show up, no.
Well, I heard that right by the Mouton statue downtown, there were 2 trees, and they were just money trees.
That was at the end of the rainbow?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's the one.
So when you think real quick, when you think about revenues for government, there are only 4 sources. Property taxes,
yes,
sales taxes, service fees,
yes,
and user fees and service charges.
Yeah.
That's primarily it.
So coming up this week, what are y'all going to look at and talk about and not necessarily do, but tell us?
I was giving some thought to this interview as I came up, and I think most people misunderstand the form of government we have.
Okay.
They think a Lafayette consolidated government.
We're not
and when
really...
in fact we have the parish of Lafayette and the city of Lafayette, and we operate on separate budgets. The city of Lafayette is doing quite well financially, thank you very much. The parish of Lafayette, since 1996, our fiscal situation has not improved. Mm-hmm. We were going broke back then. We're going broke today.
Mm-hmm. Now, at that time, and I mean, okay, so things changed. Let's just say monies were spent. And then, in this interim, communities have come in and they've annexed certain areas where there are nice, great taxes that are kind of, ooh, that looks good. Let's annex this area. Okay, so then you've got these unincorporated areas now that are left with not much of a tax base.
And people tend to think, well, that's only a small portion of the parish, when in fact it's almost 1/3 of the parish.
Wow.
About 70,000 people are not in a municipality.
No kidding.
Wow.
Okay, I never would have guessed that it was
go
that
down
high.
Bayroll School Road. Look at all the subdivisions
that's
there.
True. You're right about that.
Yeah.
That's
so a
big
third
area.
of the people, that's great that you live in those areas and you probably pay some, less tax, but
They also get fewer services.
that's right.
They do not get fire protection.
Right.
They do not get adequate law enforcement coverage because the sheriff is limited based on revenues that he receives
absolutely.
to provide that service. So when we talk about the tax base, property tax is an issue, absolutely. And it's one that since 1996, the people who were in elected office have very conveniently ignored until now. Mm-hmm. And about a year ago, the Lafayette Council formed a committee with Jay Castile, Kevin Conque, Kenneth Boutreau, and myself. 2 of us are considered city councilmen and 2 rural, because we understood that unless we built some political courage or displayed political courage, we can no longer kick the can down the road. Mm-hmm. And our favorite expression is, no more road, no more can. We have to address it. Well, at some point, we start cutting services.
It seems like the sentiment, though, I mean, we've seen it here in Lafayette. We even saw it this weekend up in Opelousas where a change to taxes, even if it's for something, I think their big thing up there was, one of the big projects was moving Park Vista Elementary out of the neighborhood by and large, and move it out, into an area where there could be a new school and everything. And they overwhelmingly voted it down. So how do you guys, in this committee and the council as a whole, come up with ways that is palatable or that people think would be a good idea? You kind of have to ask and say, what do you guys think?
Well, whatever is the approach that we take on this fiscal crisis will be determined by a vote of the people.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at property taxes, every property tax except one is voted on by the people every 10 years. And if they don't want new taxes, they will be given that opportunity. For example, coming up in April, we have 2 parish property taxes up for renewal. Last year, we failed at the first attempt to do a very simple renewal. Mm-hmm. Surprised us because historically, we had never had a renewal turned down. Mm-hmm. The general sentiment is we are overtaxed. And that's a matter of perspective. If you look at Lafayette Parish, we are 50th out of 64 parishes in the state based on the property tax. So we are not overly taxed. In fact, if you look at those parishes that have a greater property tax, they're considered progressive parishes. But that's a decision to be made by the people.
Sure.
It's not a decision to be made by me as an elected official.
Well,
it's my obligation to bring it to the people with a solution.
Has the committee discussed or talked about looking at the existing taxes that we have and asking to go back to voters and say, let's realign as we did, which vote was it? Forgive me.
Public health tax.
Public health tax.
For drainage, yes.
Right. So we went in and we shifted it. Okay, so no new taxes, but we're taking this little part of this base and moving it over here so it can be used for this. There are other avenues that could be pursued like this?
Yes. There are no solutions coming out of this committee.
Okay.
That was not the purpose of our group.
Mm-hmm.
It was to identify the issues, and coming up on this Wednesday, we will have a summit of all of the taxing bodies in Lafayette Parish to look at potential resolutions to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it could very easily be what you just
ideas.
And you know, one thing we hear most often, well, the library has all this excess funds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to remember that every property tax in Lafayette Parish is dedicated.
That's correct.
We just can't take out of that fund that the library has and bring it on over to drainage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot legally do that because the voters have dedicated it.
That's right. If that could be one thing that could be discussed.
Absolutely.
Is do we possibly then take part of that base that we already have that we're collecting that people said, okay, we want this for the library system, have people vote again and say, yes, we'd like some of that redistributed. Only we want it for police and fire service, or we want it for public works within the unincorporated areas. It's possible.
It is possible, but I will tell you this, that based on recent history, the parish library has a huge base support.
Mm-hmm.
In
there's
December
no doubt.
of 2016,
Mm-hmm.
there was a property tax renewal. They have another one coming up on April 28th,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to see how the public responds to that. But historically, they've had a huge base of support. And I don't want to get dates confused. Yeah. March 28th is this Wednesday. We're going to have a summit. It's going to be at the Light Center at 6 o'clock, open to the public. And everyone is welcome to attend.
People, please go.
Please go. We need some input.
And give your thoughts on it. And don't just stand up and say, I don't want any new taxes.
Yeah.
Please don't do just that.
At what point, though, do we have to say, okay, let's look at the services. Here's what's going to have to fall off.
Yeah.
Because I think if people actually see that, now you are going to have the ones that say, it's just a scare tactic. But if we can't pay for them and you don't want to pay more taxes, maybe there are some services people are willing to give up.
Well, call it what you will, scare tactic otherwise. But come mid-year when we adjust our budgets, it's going to become reality. Mm-hmm. We have identified that our property tax revenues, which we had anticipated a 2% increase, is now coming in at 0.8. Mm-hmm. We have looked at our sales tax collections for the last 4 months, and they have declined each month. And that includes your primary holiday sales. That's a great concern.
Absolutely.
So we know that we're going to have to adjust our budget because the expectations of revenue have not become reality. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to adjust. And when you start adjusting, you start cutting back on services. Mm-hmm. You don't repair potholes. You don't clean ditches. Possibly you don't open bridges that need to be closed because of safety concerns.
Well, and the reality of it is, we have a report right now talking about unemployment and what has happened to it. And Dr. Lauren Scott saying, the idea is, the numbers may look good, but they don't tell the whole story. A lot of people and the jobs that have been lost, they're not going to get those jobs back, at least not for the foreseeable future. And
in Lafayette Parish, the numbers don't look good, period. Mm-hmm. We started the year with a fund balance of $92,000. Now, that's in case you have an issue that needs addressing, an emergency issue. Mm-hmm. $92,000 doesn't cover anything.
That's a drop in the bucket.
At the end of 2016, we did our audit. We could have operated parish government for only 22 days. Okay? This is compared to $22 million for the city of Lafayette. Now, we can't mix the funds. Okay? Right. So Lafayette Parish is in a fiscal crisis, and we have to acknowledge it. And it's going to be painful. We're going to make some mid-year adjustments, and we're going to probably bring it to a vote of the people in the fall, possibly. But something needs to be done. You reduce the services based on the amount of revenue you have. One of the things we can't do locally, we cannot operate in the red. We're not state government. We're not national government, okay? We got to operate within our budgets.
Mm-hmm. All right, Wednesday evening at the Light Center at 6 o'clock. Go to this meeting. Do it. Be a part of it.
Councilman Bruce Conque, appreciate you coming by.
Thank you for your time this morning.